Good morning and welcome to this Strategic Plan Town Hall. I'm Alex Lukowski, AVP of Communications. If you've had any involvement at all with strategic planning at UMB, you know that the 2027 to 2031 strategic plan process is not like anything we've ever done. In fact, it's been something like a rocket ride for these kinds of things. That's because our deadline to complete this work and submit UMB's plan to the University System of Maryland is the end of June, which, as you know, is just one page flip of the calendar away. At two gatherings in March, one in person and one virtual like this one, people from every facet of the university discussed and explored each of the draft plan's 6 themes and strategic objectives that better define them. From there, the groups dove headlong into developing the strategic outcomes that will help us assess and measure the success of our efforts. Now, that process produced a lot of ideas, tempered by many points of view, which is the point. So over the last 2 months, our Strategic Plan Committee has been synthesizing those ideas, formulating what someone on the committee described to me informally as a nearly final collection of draft themes, objectives, and outcomes. And just as we did yesterday at an in-person session at the School of Pharmacy, today you'll have a chance to see what's become of those ideas and weigh in with any final thoughts. If at the end of the presentation you do want to make a comment or ask a question, please write it in the Q&A section, and we'll call on you when the time comes. Now, please welcome the co-chairs of the 2027 to 2031 strategic planning process, Jenny Owens, Vice Provost of Academic Affairs and Strategic Initiatives, and Yolanda Obalou, the Bill and Joanne Conway, Dean and Professor of the University of Maryland School of Nursing. And also joining them today is Chief Inclusive Excellence and Institutional Effectiveness Officer and Vice President Diane Forbes-Berthoud. So with all that out of the way, Dr. Owens, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So glad to see you today. We had a great session yesterday and also glad to have a virtual session, for those that couldn't make it. But we're here to discuss the strategic plan. Victoria, okay, perfect. So as for the agenda today, our agenda is pretty short. We want to give some time for a conversation, but some of you have been here every step of the way, and this will sound, old hat to you. Others, this will be the first time you're joining in, so we want to tell a little bit about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And that's the themes for today. So when we're talking about this, we want you to embrace a strategic mindset today. Step back to see the broader landscape of UMB, the broader landscape, even, what's going on nationally. And we're asking you to think institutionally and not just within your schools and units. So that's the spirit that we're all holding close today. All right, and when we look nationally, a lot has changed in the last year and a half. This is a summary slide from the Educational Advisory Board, and this is something that we really dug into in the steering committee through an environmental scan. But there's been remarkable changes structurally to higher education. Student loan and aid, the Grad Plus, has been eliminated as of July 1. There's changes in international student immigration, research, which we feel really heavily here on a campus like this one. Accreditation and accountability is something we're watching really closely right now, as the handbook for accreditors is being revised through a rulemaking process. So that's something that, is really a lot of eyes are on, or at least our eyes are on in IMAG, which is the Issues Management Advisory Group that's navigating through some of these federal changes. And then campus culture and climate. I would say ever since Pam Bondi's memo on Valentine's Day of last year, there's been a chilling effect of, what is lawful DEI? What is unlawful? What does this mean to us when some of our values are equity and justice, and how do we lead through this? So we just recognize that a lot has happened that is at the macro level, and a lot that's happened that we feel in our everyday. And these are things that we've been very attentive to, and we want to, continue to lead through. So this I really just feel so pulled to go on and on this slide, and I won't. But if anyone has any questions about anything, feel free to pull me at another time, and I'm happy to talk through any of this. So as we move on we want to be all on the same page with vocabulary. And so our structure it has themes. So these are the high level, um, memorable, headlines that we're using to point us in a direction. The objective is looking more closely at what does that mean? A long-term organizational goal that puts a theme into context and brings it into sharper focus. Then we have the outcomes. So these are the results the university expects to realize if it's successful in pursuing that objective. So these are the three main areas that the steering committee has been focused on. And then moving from here, once the plan is finalized, because we are nearing final, we'll move on to goal setting in departments and units and schools. So this will be SMART goals, and Dr. Forbes Berthoud will talk more about that later on in the presentation. So timeline. This has been fast, but it's been really intentional. And we started in the fall with an amazing logistics committee. We had deans and VPs nominate members of the steering committee, and that kicked off in January. We did a large environmental scan, really seeing clearly, not only what's going on here at UMB, but what's going on around the nation. We had a first set of town halls in March, which were really well attended. We've had a broad campus feedback collection via survey. This is the second set of town halls. And then we'll be finalizing the plan and sending it off to the USM, where schools will work on their goals over the fall. And this plan will be in effect January 1, 2027. So as for feedback, we've tried to be really intentional about getting feedback. So for the town halls, we had about 250 in attendance for the first series. We had about 50 people do surveys. And then as for leadership, governance, councils around the university, Dean Obalu and I had one-on-ones with deans and VPs. We presented regularly in the Deans and VPs Council, which we sit on. We presented to USGA, to Staff Senate, to Faculty Senate, to the DAC. HR business partners invited us and the Communication Council as well. So we were open for business and continue to be, as we get to the finish line here. So this is slide one of the steering committee. The steering committee, we had so many people, sometimes we would run out of chairs. It was such a great group of people. So just really appreciate all the steering committee coming from all parts of the university. We can show them all on the second slide too. So if you're on the steering committee, let's use our like the cool emoticon feature on Zoom and just like throw up let us see you on the chat. But we just really appreciate you. Or if you're not on the steering committee, throw some love in their direction because this group showed up, they were engaged, they were really fun to work with. It was a hopeful activity for me too. And just really appreciate the dedication of the steering committee. And I also want to thank the logistics committee. So this is the group that met every single week to get all of these details right. So really appreciate Meg and Michael and Peter and Laura and Victoria and Deborah and Brian and Leilani for all of their efforts here. And a special thanks too to Meg as the chair, because we all know that this stuff doesn't happen accidentally and there's a lot of detail to get right. And this group really executed really well. So thank you. And from here, I'm going to pitch it to Yolanda.
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited and grateful to the logistics and the steering committee and to all of you. I think one of the best parts about this strategic plan has been just the ability to listen and learn from the UMB community. So what we present to you today is really a reflection of what we heard from the UMB community. When we started to think about these themes, one of the things that we felt it was important to share is guiding principles. And so when we think about what's driving the themes that we'll show to you today is the mission, the vision, and the core values. All of the themes are centered around our current mission and vision and core values, none of which will change. We reviewed them as part of this process, but felt that we were really in a great place with the mission and vision, and so those will remain unchanged. The themes also are very people-centric by design, taking into consideration the many individuals that are impacted by UMB. Using the environmental scan, which was shared with you earlier, we really thought about how can these be informed by data, evidence-based, and that we wanted to present them and hear from you in a way that was transparent and inclusive. The bottom line was the goals were intended to be feasible, fiscally responsible, meaning that we actually have the resources to be able to implement them, and measurable. So I wanted to just share quickly where we've been and where we're going. So our current themes, which will be wrapping up at the end of this academic year, are positioned on the left. And this is just to give you a little bit of where we've been and where we're going. And then the draft themes that are near final are here on the right. So United for Impact, student, faculty, and staff success, future ready graduate and professional education, research and scholarship excellence, digital transformation and innovation, and community and global engagement. And you can see how they're a bit different from where we were before. I'll take a few minutes and go through the themes, the strategic objectives for each one, and the planned outcomes. So the first one, United for Action. University of Maryland is a university of 7 schools, and United for Action is really moving us towards acting as one university, demonstrating that we're connected by a shared identity and purpose, and that we are able to have agility as the landscape around us is changing, while we focus on our mission, which is to improve the human condition. The strategic outcomes associated with this is really UMB will, by the end of the strategic plan, have a clear and unified identity. That we will remain a fiscally responsible institution in which our resources and the decisions that we make are not only balanced, but they reflect our mission, vision, and core values. We heard from the community quite a bit about making sure that University of Maryland, Baltimore had a differentiated institutional voice, that we really elevated what is special about UMB, what makes UMB different. And so outcome number 3 really speaks to that, as well as us being able to have an elevated presence and voice within health, legal, and human service systems. And then finally, to be recognized as a leader within the University of Maryland system by leveraging system-wide partnerships to advance the priorities of the system and UMB. So that's our first one, United for Impact. The second one is student, faculty, and staff success. And we're excited about this one. From our current strategic plan, it focused on student growth and success. And what we heard from the UMB community is that in order for students to be successful, faculty and staff also need to be successful. So this strategic objective focuses on students, staff, faculty, and postdoctoral fellows, ensuring that we all have equitable access to the resources we need to thrive. The strategic outcomes associated with this theme is that UMB will be an employer of choice, that we will attract and retain exceptional, innovative faculty, staff, and postdocs. That our student experiences will be defined by academic excellence, and that students will have equitable access to financial and educational resources that open pathways for successful careers. We also want our campus environment that actively supports holistic well-being and has the resources that are available to build great connections, creativity, and shared experiences. That this environment would also be inclusive and which every member of the community can experience belonging and shared responsibility. We wanted to be sure to, and we heard this from the community, include alumni and volunteers and make sure that they're also able to contribute to UMB in a meaningful way. And so this final outcome really focuses on a deeply connected alumni and volunteer community. The third theme is one that we're particularly excited about as well. Seems like I'm excited about all of them, which I am. This one really centers on future-ready graduate and professional education. It's really thinking about the landscape that is changing in higher education and how will UMB prepare learners to adapt and grow and lead in evolving professions. And so the strategic outcomes center on graduates being prepared with education that has an enduring value. We know that we have evolving workforce systems, but we want to make sure that the education that we're providing has enduring value that will allow our graduates to lead. We want to open space for flexible, affordable, and innovative curricular pathways. Examples include stackable learning and micro-credentials, things that will support lifelong growth in health, law, and human services professions. And that not only will our students be prepared, but that our faculty and staff will be equipped with the forward-looking skills that they need to deliver a future-ready education. And also that we will build even stronger and sustain partnerships with the Maryland workforce system and with alumni and employers. The fourth one is research and scholarship excellence. And when we think about research and scholarship excellence, and you go back to Jenny Owens's comment about the changing landscape, particularly for research for most academic institutions, we look for opportunities to elevate, sustain, and grow our research. We believe that through our strategic outcome, the first one, that interdisciplinary practice-informed research and scholarship that spans all types of research will really promote innovation and impact. We look to not only strengthen the ability to have interdisciplinary research, but also to improve the institutional infrastructure and the way that it sets the stage for collaboration, for compliance, and sustained excellence. A thriving research community where researchers feel supported and recruited and retained to really drive discovery and innovation. We're very focused on diversifying the research funding base. As federal fundings have diminished, really building capacity to expand research through industry, through philanthropic partnerships. And finally, we want our research and our researchers to be widely recognized, to be celebrated, and communicated to the public and elevates UMB's value to Maryland and beyond. So we're almost there. Number five. Number five really focuses on digital transformation and innovation. And this one from the UMB community had a lot of conversation. UMB will responsibly, and it was very important to the community that that word responsible be there, responsibly accelerate innovation and digital transformation. And we will see this as a university through our outcomes where we have a UMB community where people are digitally fluent, privacy aware, and equipped with the technological skills they need to thrive. that we will expand our secure and interoperable digital foundation, and that at the same time, we will maintain a robust cybersecurity and data governance practices. One of the things we wanted to be sure to talk about, but also acknowledge that it's not the only technology that we're talking about, is that we need institutional guidelines and accountability as it pertains to generative and agentic AI, but also for all emerging technologies. And then the final one really centers on developing at UMB a culture of innovation, one that is supported by clear governance and prioritization. And what's really exciting is creating an environment where faculty, staff, and students can experiment, learn safely, succeed, and then scale up new innovations. And last but not least is community and global engagement. UMB will position itself as a national leader in community and global engagement. And we will see that in our strategic outcomes as UMB continues to be a vibrant anchor institution in Baltimore. And even beyond, thinking about our regional, national, and global partnerships, places that include things like the Eastern Shore and our Shady Grove campus, and ensure that these partnerships are co-designed with residents, organizations, and partners, and that we ensure reciprocity and shared ownership. We heard from students that it was important for them to have access, more access to high quality global and local and interprofessional experiences. And we want to strengthen the capacity for faculty, staff, and students to really be able to do community and global work. And at the end, we want to be able to show and demonstrate that we have a measurable record of community and global outcomes that advances accountability and strengthens partnerships and elevates UMB reputation as a national leader. So these are the 6 themes that we heard from the community. We're particularly excited about it and look forward to, when we open it up at the end, to hear feedback from you. And I will now hand off to Diane Forbes-Bethau to tell you a little bit about, now that we are coming close to finalizing the themes, what's next?
Thank you so much, Yolanda and Jenny. Pleasure to be with everyone. Good morning and happy Friday. So I'm Diane Forbes-Bethau and pleased to lead an amazing team in the Office of Inclusive Excellence and Institutional Effectiveness, IEIE or EIEIO. We'll just get that out of the way. People have been coming to me here. They are making various suggestions about what we should be called and how we should name or label ourselves. Next slide, please. So this is our amazing team. I think many of you might know some, if not all of us, and we are still getting fully staffed. Rhea Burnett, who is our Assistant Vice President, Brian Scruggs, who's our Senior Research Analyst, Ray Tagach, our Director for Inclusive Excellence and Institutional Effectiveness, and Katie Hughes, who's my Executive Assistant. So a lot of the work I'm going to be talking about is supported, led, and managed by them. Next slide, please. And I believe some of them are on the call today, and they're also members of the Strategic Planning Committee and the Logistics Committee. Very briefly, this is what our office is about: advancing inclusive excellence in teaching, research, learning, data-driven planning, strategic partnerships, and cultivating a culture of belonging, dialogue, and well-being. And I'm sure as you looked at the strategic plan and listened to the various themes and priorities, you'll see that a number of those things fall in our office. And so we're pleased to lead the next few steps in what's going to be happening soon. Next slide, please. So once the plan has been finalized this summer, what I'm hoping to do is work with many of you to take this multiple steps forward. And one of the plans that we have through the office is to invite some of you to be a part of an implementation committee. You might recall that the Core Values Committee some years ago had the committee that came up with the revision or the refinement of those values. And then there was a committee that was put in place to work on, well, how do we operationalize this? Educating people, being leaders in capacity building and champions, if you will, of the plan. I'm also talk with you today about the strategic management implementation system, SPIMS, and other systems that we have to support strategic planning and how we'll measure progress as we move forward in the future. Impact. So we've done really well, at least since the creation of SPIMS, in measuring the kinds of initiatives we've had in place, the hires we've made, the programs we've put in place. And I'd like us to be thinking about, yes, entering the information, which is good. And some people see this as checking the box, but I'd like us to zoom out a bit to be more strategic and thoughtful in our acting and in our planning, to think about the ways in which we are creating impact in our community, in the state, and the region, and the world even. We heard some of that in some of the themes. So focusing on decision quality and using metrics to drive continuous improvement. And so even if we do achieve some of our goals, to even think beyond that, to see how we can expand the particular themes that we heard today. Next slide, please. And so this is really a cultural shift for those of you who've been doing well in this. This is great. We'd like across campus for more of us to be integrating data and assessment in the decisions that we make. And so that it's not necessarily based on 5 or 10 or maybe even 20 of us, but that we look at our data, our surveys, we listen to our folks in our focus groups and our various meetings to then inform our decisions so that we can be a more dynamic and collaborative university. Next slide, please. So the Strategic Planning Implementation Management System was created a few years ago, and we've continued to refine it year after year as we've learned new things and as we have new information from you. It was developed to facilitate SMART goal creation, and I'll talk a bit about that, and approval. Risk assessment was added maybe 2+ years ago, and really looking at our progress reporting over time. And I'll give you an example of some of those types of statements as well as systems so that you can see what's going to happen now. Next slide, please. So once we have the plan in place, by next year, January 2027, you'll be in a position to engage the Strategic Planning Implementation Management System, aka SPIMS. And this is based on the previous plan because it's established with those themes. And so what you'll see when you go in are the themes, which you'll see from 1 to 6, the plan that's going to conclude June 2026, and you'll see the primary objective there. And the same thing will happen once the new plan is in place. You'll see the 6 themes from United for Impact all the way to community and global engagement with the objectives. And then you'll see top left or kind of in the middle somehow, you'll see add goal. You'll have an opportunity to add goals related as a unit or a school related to each of these themes. Now, these are questions that we get often. Does everyone or every unit or school have to enter SMART goals on every outcome in every theme, right? So if you are, I'm going to give an example of HR, for example, you may or may not have goals related to community and global engagement. You may have supported a program, so maybe you have something on community engagement, but maybe not as much on global engagement because of the nature of your work. You work in budget and planning, you may have some information or some data to enter there. Some positions don't necessarily have close engagement with student success. However, a lot of our funding, a lot of our initiatives that help faculty also help students. So we have a number of ways to think about engagement with all the themes, but not every school or unit will have to offer information or offer goals in that area. Next slide, please. So what are the goals? As you think about these 6 themes and you're thinking about goals for each one, you will not be alone. Our office and the team members that I just shared with you will be available to you for consultation. I'll give many of these types of presentations across campus to schools, to units, wherever you'd like us to be. And Dr. Roper-Ned and Ms. Gatch will be on hand to have office hours, socialization sessions online, in person as needed to help you and to facilitate your work in coming up with goals for these areas. Next slide, please. And so the goal will be, where do you want to go? What is the specific desired result that you would like to achieve? In other words, a rudder for your direction. If you think about a ship, that rudder is taking you on the ocean to somewhere, navigating you to a particular point. As a university, we've established through the plan, at least when it's finalized by July, where we'd like to head. And then our duty, if you will, or responsibility as offices and as schools will be, how can we contribute to helping the university reach where we'd like to go, mission, vision, and values. Next slide, please. The goals that you will enter will be SMART. Some of you are familiar with this. They need to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Next slide, please. And so that means that the specific, it's the who, why, how, and when, and what exactly will be accomplished, what actions will you take, who's going to be responsible for doing that. Sometimes we'll say we'll do particular things, but we don't know what part of the division. People are like, I didn't know I was responsible for that. Well, who will be responsible for it? How will you measure it? How will you know you would have achieved success? How much and how well? And we'll work with you on how to do that. Achievable. Is this something that you think by 2020, 2027, 28, 29 up to 31, that it can be achieved? It has to be realistic and achievable to say, for example, we'll raise $50 billion in the next 7 days, in the next week. Somebody will pause and say, can we really do that? And that's what we're here to help you to do. And then relevant. It's great to have dreams. It's great to have that rudder. But how is this connected to our organizational mission? Right. So we know our mission is to improve the human condition, our core values. We have them. It's on my background here, and we see them throughout campus. And many of us have signed the pledge. So how is it connected to those values or to the mission or where we'd like to head? And these 6 themes, and then time bound. All of the goals need to have some by X point, this needs to be accomplished, and then you're able to track that. I'll give you one example really quickly from HR. And these are actually examples from the previous system. By December 31st, 2025, human resources will reduce average time to hire by 15% by standardizing hiring workflows and training hiring managers. So we hear an action. We know that HR is going to do the training. Measurable, that we want to reduce the average hiring time by 15%. It is relevant. Efficiency is a part of what we're aiming to increase in our plan, and by December 31st, 2025. And that can be mapped in SPIM. So that's the time-bound components. It's connected to our mission. It's achievable because this is something that I know that Malika, as a Chief Human Resources Officer, has been working on, and they have a way to measure this, right? So we can go in SPIMS to see, well, how far did they get in achieving that goal? And this also helps with recruitment and retention and some of the goals we talked about. So that will be related to staff, faculty, and student success. I'll just give you an example from the last time. Next slide, please. And there are other examples, of course, in a more detailed presentation, we'll talk about that. So this is part of what we can produce and also that we can learn from. What we have here are the ideas related to theme 1 through 6 from the last plan and the level of completion by June 30th, 2025. We're still working on the 4.5 and the 5-year report, which will be ready in the next few months. But this gives us information on the level at which people were able to complete the goals. It does not say here, and we can add that in other presentations, how many goals were submitted for these, right? So we have information. If you look at the blue and the green, it gives us some information of how far as a university we got in achieving the goals submitted for example, core values as of last year, June. So this is a year ago. Hopefully in the next 12 months following this, we'll see even more completion. And so we see that we made good progress as of last year in our core values integration goals, student growth and success. Pretty much in all the areas, they're either significant progress or near completion, and all the way down to global engagement and education. Next slide, please. We also have information about each academic unit. So we've combined them here. So academic units on a whole and VP level units on a whole, lead units on a whole, have achieved, as of last year, more than 80% have made significant progress or have completely achieved all their goals by June of last year. So again, hopefully in the next 6 months after that and 12 months after that, June is in another month, we'll see even greater progress. And so these are the types of reports with more detail and narrative. We also have information on the number of goals submitted for each area and the success we've had there. So we know that innovation and reimagination of the last plan had the most goals submitted. That's 100 plus. And then global engagement and integration had the least number of goals submitted. So we have an opportunity to look at success there in terms of, well, what are some of the drivers of the institution, right? And we look at that based on goals and completion. And we hope over time to give that kind of progress to the university, but we are here to support your goal creation, your goal progress, and through the committee and our continued engagement with my office. I hope to be talking to more of you soon. And thanks again to my amazing team for putting a lot of this together and being able to support you. And thank you for your attention today. Happy to take questions now or later. So this is what's coming ahead. And I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Forbes-Berthoud. I really appreciate you helping us, see what is next, because we are getting a lot of those questions. So your presence here is so perfect. So I open the floor, any questions that were in the chat, or Alex, you're so good at this part. So
Well, thank you.
you.
I appreciate that. No, we have about 100 attendees in the audience. I know they have a lot of questions. They just haven't written them in the Q&A section yet because they're listening to the presentation. Very understandable. In the meantime, Dean Oberle, you mentioned a couple of points. You stressed that there was more there, and I wanted to explore one of them with you, which was this idea of responsibly accelerating innovation. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that means, what people are saying in the feedback sessions?
Sure. I'll jump in and I'll ask Jenny to add to this. I mean, what we really heard about from the community was there's obviously been a great increase in the use of AI. And I think a lot of the conversation centered around the use of AI, and really saying that the university needs to have a very structured governance system for the use of AI guidelines and policies, many of which we have begun to put in place already, but to really expand on that and to make sure that there's real structure around the use of both AI and agentic AI.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add, except that we do want to use new technologies very responsibly and intentionally. And we also recognize that there's sustainability aspects of AI's use. It's not an infinity button that you push that doesn't have, impact elsewhere. So we just want to be really conscious consumers of what is new. So we tried to embed, that into that based on that feedback.
All right, let's bring Nia Wirtz into the conversation. Nia, you had a question? Go ahead and open your mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there you are.
Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Forsberg. I had a question about how a pair might fit into this because, all of the goals level need to filter down to the program level, and each program has to submit a pair reports. At least we've done that in the past. So I didn't know how a pair was being thought of in terms of this new structure for your office.
Thanks for the question. Good morning, Nia. Great to hear from you. So it is a part, APAIR is the Academic Program Assessment Information Reporting System, I believe. All these new acronyms that I am learning, and also ADPAIR, the Administrative Program Assessment. So it's still alive. We are reviewing and looking for connections and coherence across the SPIMS system and that. We recently had a best practices and assessment group meeting, BPAG, where we talked about revisions to that system as well as preparation for accreditation and planning. So stay tuned. As we get fully staffed, we'll loop back with everyone on due dates and what's required for that system. But we hope to create more coherence across the system so people aren't doing 5, 6 different entries and not really making sense of how things come together. So we're working on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another stress point in the presentation was about the inclusion of alumni and volunteers in a more meaningful way. And I will admit my own ignorance. I didn't know we had volunteers, but I have heard a lot about alumni and getting alumni more engaged. And everywhere you go around the state, when you encounter care providers, whether they're dentists or lawyers or social workers, very often there are grads. What are people saying about including them in a more meaningful way in our work?
So I would just say a lot of schools are already, being incredibly intentional about including their alumni and volunteers in their process. We have 55,000 living alumni from UMB in the state of Maryland, and that's a lot of people, right? And so that's a lot of people, excuse me, that we can hopefully extend our mission through, not to mention like preceptors who are with our students when they're rotating through clinical rotations. those are also, often volunteers. And so, this is a big stakeholder group for us, and we wanted just to be more intentional about that being explicit in that bridge. And Yolanda, you may have, more to add as a dean.
No, I agree with what you're saying. We have many alumni and volunteers. I think about people that serve, for example, on advisory boards in all the schools and the various units, and that give up their time, their talent, and their treasure. And having them inform us on our strategic plan is extremely helpful, but also making sure they're a part of being able to make a meaningful contribution to UMB is exciting and very beneficial to the university.
All right. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say one thing to add that's like somewhat related is the theme one is United for Impact. And in past strategic plans or past messaging, we had 7 schools, 1 university. So we wanted to pivot a little bit from the structure to, what we can do together and like what we can create together and how do we talk about that. But for that theme or any other themes, and we can put them up if it's helpful, we want to know what resonates, or what was missed or what's not quite hitting the mark. So very open to that today. Or if you're a reflector, like I'm someone that benefits from a couple hours for my stairway wit to develop. If you are one of those people, Jay Owens at U Maryland or any member of our team, we're really eager to hear from you.
All right. One of your folks from the School of Nursing, Dean Obalou, Jordana Sinieri, she raises an excellent point about the pace of change. Jordana, go ahead, open your mic and tell us more.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you. Thank you for this and for being here and for talking to us about all of this. So my question, it was kind of an observation and then a question, is that the strategic planning period is long. And as we know, in 5 years, so much in our lives and in higher ed can change. So we're talking about our goals now, but the intent is for these to be our goals over the next 5 years. And so I'm wondering if moving forward, there would be regular, consistent reporting on where we stand on the SMART goals that Dr. Forbes-Berthau described, because I think as we all get busy again, we sometimes forget about our strategic plan goals or we can't keep track of the objectives. And so I was thinking that might help keep up consistent interest in and enthusiasm about the strategic plan and the process. And I didn't know if there will be or has been a dashboard available that could be referenced so that we can keep track of these SMART goals.
Thank you, Jordana. So we don't have a dashboard yet, but we will have a strategic planning website that will show that progress to the extent that we can not, compromise or show any confidential information. That's one thing, but also having the committee and having an office established with more staff will be able to do these kinds of town halls and updates, I would say every 6 to 12 months. So that, because what I found is in my experience being here now 5, almost 6 years, the plan was developed, and unless you're a SPIMS user doing the goal creation and reporting, sometimes people are not as engaged with the plan beyond the creation process. And so I hope to create more socialization and engagement around the planning and implementation, and we'll have that on our website along the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, sorry, Alex, to Giordana, your point too on 5 years being a long time, like it feels extra long right now to me. If you told me 2 years ago that some of these changes would take place, I would have not believed you. I just wouldn't have. And so I think your point too of like, as we're creating these goals, just the recognition that our strategies and our tactics might need to change, and just because you write something down on day one, like sometimes, okay, that's not going to work anymore in this environment, but there's different ways to get at it. So I just want to call out to like the underlying sense of like, how could we plan 5 years ahead? I think we try, but I think we approach it with the spirit of, if this door closes, we're going to try a different way.
With that in mind, the idea of future-ready graduate and professional education seems more and more daunting than ever. I mean, it's always been a fact that you teach the basics and the core understanding of any discipline, and you have to be prepared to adapt. But these days, those adaptations seem to be pretty big leaps sometimes. What sorts of ideas or suggestions did people have in the process about that?
Yolanda, do you want to tackle first?
Sure. So, I mean, we know that the educational landscape is changing. One of the things we wrote directly in the strategic plan was related to innovative curriculum pathways. Example of that would be right now we offer many of our degrees over a 4-year period. Does it need to be 4 years? Can we think about other ways that maybe we could reduce the time? A lot of programs are offering courses that run 8 weeks. Many places across the campus, we still offer courses for 15 and 16 weeks. So we have to think about some of those innovative strategies in the future. In addition, some of our staff members that are seeking professional education, there's questions about whether micro-credentialing or badging in a specific area of expertise would be beneficial to them. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about, some of the things that we heard from the community. But obviously, it is rapidly changing, as Giordana speaks to, and we try to leave it broad enough to make space for the future.
I mean, there's some amazing things that happen on campus, and things that you don't learn about in a textbook. Like even thinking back a couple years ago, where our shock trauma had organ delivery by drone, the first in the nation. And those are things that happen through practice and through imagination. So, like, how also do you cultivate skills of lifelong learning, skills of flexibility, so that students, when they're in their environment as practitioners, they can leverage what they're learning, and build something new to, improve the human condition. But I think there's some really special things that occur on campus that aren't textbook, and we gotta have to keep driving towards that too.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring in Jared Casanidi, who notes that our own environment is changing quite a bit. I mean, our immediate environment. Jared, do you want to ask about that? Go ahead, open your mic.
Thank you. Appreciate the plan, and also wanted to ask about the building plans that have been shared and recently with regards to, I believe, new residential buildings and some other changes that are coming to the area near the School of Pharmacy and the dentistry school.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jared. I'll go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was gonna say, we talk about a vibrant campus, and we talk about, how do we create a place where people are living and working, and places to eat, and so I do think when we talk about the Lexington corridor, there's tremendous, opportunity and momentum in this space. And I think some of that is captured in student, faculty, and staff success. But if you have ideas too about how that could be more explicit, we're very open to them. And Yolanda, if you have more to add there, yeah, go.
No, I was going to say I'm excited about this question because of our commitment to building a vibrant campus. I do see this part of community and global engagement really under strategic outcome one, where we're talking about being an anchor institution and vibrancy in the community. So it would be just great, Jared, any input that you have and whether that specific outcome really captures it in the way you're thinking about it. But we do recognize that the vibrancy of the community is a big strategic interest of the university and would love to have that reflected in the strategic plan.
All right, I'm going to let Dean Kenneth Wong take the heat. I should say of the School of Graduate Studies take the heat on this issue, but he shouldn't. He's not alone, I think, in sort of his sense of how we operate. Well, I had him here a moment ago. What happened to him? Give me just a second. And
I
I
think it
will,
moved to the answer
there he is.
column. Yep.
Oh, the group answered. Well, let's allow him to say something. Ken, are you there?
Yep. Did you just want me to repeat the comment I put in the Q&A?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Sure,
Just
please.
just
Yeah, I was going to say this is not a criticism because I understand that these things are difficult, but the systems that we have by and large, like SPIMS, like A-pair, AdPair, they are not built for agility. When I went into it to try to understand like how I would evolve a goal, I found it nearly impossible to do that. And the best solution was to just say we're not doing this goal anymore and then add a new one. And that's it. Because that shows up as a cancellation and then a new goal. Whereas it really should be this is a goal that we looked at and we evolved because the conditions on the ground have changed.
Thank you, Kenneth. And just like the previous question from Nia, this is something that as we've come into the new office and I've inherited the system, we're looking at. If people are to be in there by January, we have a tremendous challenge between now and say October to put in the short-term changes that we can, and then long-term for the next cycle, we hope to make some more changes. So what I hear is greater agility to evolve a goal. People have been asking about connections across AdPair, A-pair, and the strategic planning system. We have questions as well about how we download reports. And yesterday we heard, which might be helpful to all, how can schools and units see the information and the progress from other schools and units to get some ideas and to learn from each other, which I think is amazing. Part of the United for Impact, as well as the information, innovation related goals, and of course, success. So thanks for the feedback. If you have more specific information beyond the evolving of a goal, then we'd be more than happy to talk with you about that. But we've been having feedback sessions for schools and units over the last 2 or so months. Both Ria and Rita have been meeting with SPIMS users to get that feedback. And then after we have it all, hopefully we'll be done in the next 4 weeks, we'll make the changes. Thank you.
that theme of United for Impact seems to have resonance. I've noticed you've had big crowds for the town halls, a lot of enthusiasm, and people from many different parts of campus, not just sort of, the usual suspects at some of these, which is nice to see. What is it that drove that theme to be a theme and to be the number one theme?
I really think what we have here is so special. We have 7 schools. We have a focus, people who care, people who are out there trying to make the world better for other people in health, human services, and law. Like truly, this is a special group of people who aren't here accidentally, and they're going to be working together after graduation in service to our community. So I think the more that we can talk about, like, how do we do things interprofessionally? How do we do things together? The more equipped our students will be to serve, and the more equipped we'll be to have impact, collaboratively. But I do think we're not, they say, okay, we're not like everyone else. We really aren't. But there's so many amazing things about the value of our education and the enduring value of our education, the ROI of our education, the impact of our research. And the research, I think, operates as an absolute invisible infrastructure to so many things that we take for granted. When we go to the doctor, and we get a test, it feels like it's an interaction between us and a clinician, but really it's an interaction that can span decades of hundreds of hands and eyes and hearts that went into building something beautiful. So I really feel that we have something special here, and I'm really excited about United for Impact. And Yolanda, feel free to join in that too.
I would echo what you're saying. We have been a university that's worked collaboratively across schools for many years. And we wanted to do more of that and to do it even better. And I think United for Impact really gives us an opportunity to actually set the goal and make it achievable for us to do it. And so this is one of the things we've heard a lot of excitement about. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, yes, it's number one for now. These themes are not ranked in the order of importance. I just want to make it clear that community and global engagement is as important as the other themes. It actually woke me up last night because I was thinking we've presented these 1 through 6, but I want people to understand they're not weighted 1 through 6.
Well, I didn't mean to imply that. I'm sorry. It was at the top of the list, and it is sort of an umbrella idea around everything, right? How we approach every aspect of what we do. We've spent the last, year, more than a year, dealing with changes in our research funding and approach, um, challenges to our culture and how we approach our people, our staff, our students. Um, what do you what do you are you how do you feel about this strategic plan sort of making a real being able to really galvanize people in the right directions?
Yeah, I mean, a lot has changed in 5 years. We've had COVID. I look at my life in different chapters. I have like pre and post COVID. I have pre and post kids and pre and post both of my kids. Like there's these milestones in my life, and I think this one has hit, a lot of milestones. And then when we talk about all the federal change that's been driven this year, we're grappling with like, okay, how do we mitigate this on the day to day? And I think when we're so focused on repairing the day to day in some instances you lose sight of what's ahead. And so what I think has been exciting about this plan is it's bringing that more into focus, at least for me. And hopefully one that will continue to keep other people working towards, when we talk about the rudder of the goal, when we talk about, what's driving us ahead. I This is for me, I got a lot out of this to be like in community with our amazing steering and Dean Ovalu, who's just fantastic. It's been such a hopeful exercise for me, and I hope it's one that will play out with you all as well.
All right, we're just about out of time. We don't have any other questions from the audience. Are there any final thoughts or things you want the attendees to take away from this discussion with, or you want them to do after the discussion?
No, I would say we're really excited about the strategic plan. We hope that you are as well. We also want you to know that we're open to still hearing your voices. So if you have something, please feel free to reach out to our logistics or our steering committee. We'll be happy to receive any final feedback. We are near final, but we're still open. We're still open to your voice.
Anyone else? We have just a minute.
Just really appreciate everyone showing up today on a Friday morning to discuss our strategic plan. You guys are great, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again.
Great. Well, thank you again, everyone, and have a great day. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.